History remembers conquerors by the borders they redraw. But the deepest empires are not carved into maps. They are carved into bodies, into bloodlines, into silence. Behind the legend of Genghis Khan lies a truth so unsettling that it still echoes through human DNA today. Not just conquest, not just slaughter, but a calculated system where terror, sex, and reproduction became tools of statecraft. This is not the story of a man who merely conquered the world. This is the story of how he rewrote the future of entire peoples by deciding who would live, who would die, and who would be forced to carry his legacy. When most people hear the name Genghis Khan, they picture a master strategist, a boy born into poverty who rose through betrayal and blood to command the largest land empire in history from the Pacific coast to the edges of Europe. His armies moved like a storm. History books admire his military genius. Statues immortalize him in bronze. But those polished narratives leave out the machinery that made his empire possible. They avoid the private rules, the hidden laws, and the intimate violence that held everything together. Because empires are not built by armies alone, they are sustained by control over loyalty, over fear, and most disturbingly, over human reproduction. To understand Genghis Khan fully, you have to look beyond the battlefield. You have to look into the tents, the courts, the marriages, and the bodies of the conquered. And when you do, the legend becomes something far darker. Genghis Khan was not born a ruler. He entered the world as Temujin, the son of a minor tribal leader on the Mongolian steppe. When his father was poisoned by rivals, Temujin's family was cast out, left to starve. He grew up hunted, humiliated, and hardened by loss. That childhood shaped everything that followed. Temujin learned early that mercy was weakness, that survival demanded domination. And when he finally gained power, he did not forget who had wronged him. One of the earliest examples came in 1202, when he turned his armies against the Tatars, the tribe responsible for his father's death. By then, Temujin was no longer a desperate orphan. He was a rising warlord with loyal followers and a vision that went far beyond revenge. When the Tatars were defeated, his orders were precise and chilling. Every male taller than the iron pin that held a cartwheel to its axle, roughly the height of a young boy, was to be executed. No exceptions, no negotiations. Imagine the scene. A child dragged forward, forced to stand beside a wagon as a guard measures his height with a glance. Life or death decided in seconds. Thousands were killed this way, not in the heat of battle, but systematically, methodically. The women, however, were spared, not out of mercy. They were taken as spoils of war. The most prominent and beautiful were absorbed into the households of Temujin and his commanders. He himself selected the Tatar sisters to join his camp. This was not impulse or cruelty for its own sake. It was policy. By exterminating the male line and absorbing the women, the Tatar identity would disappear within a generation. No sons to avenge, no fathers to lead. Rebellion, only descendants carrying Mongol blood. Once this method proved effective, it became a blueprint. Years earlier, a rival tribe known as the Merkits had raided Temujin's camp and abducted his wife, Bart. The humiliation never left him. When the Merkits were finally crushed, their leader's widow was captured and later given to one of Temujin's sons. That woman would eventually rule the empire as regent, commanding princes and generals alike. Another alliance followed the same pattern. After defeating the Karaites, Temujin arranged the marriage of a noble Karat woman to his youngest son. From that union came for grandsons men who would later rule China, Persia, and the Mongol heartland. These were not love stories. They were acts of demographic warfare. Conquer, eliminate the men, absorb the women, claim the future through marriage and forced reproduction. Genghis Khan ensured loyalty where none had existed and erased the possibility of resistance from defeated elites. Sex was not personal, it was political, but conquest alone could not hold an empire together. Fear needed structure, control, needed law. In 1206, on the banks of the Anan River, the Mongol tribes gathered in a grand council. Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, ruler of all Mongols. With the title came a legal code known as the Yassa. Unlike other laws of the time, the Yassa was not publicly displayed. It was secret, known only to the Khan and his inner circle. But his punishments were visible to all.